Thou shalt not make maps for thy game. One of the most memorable RPG campaigns for me was one where the very first session, the entire group got together, and we passed around a piece of graph paper, and we took turns drawing something on it. Whatever we did there ultimately became the world map for our campaign. It was one of the funnest games I have ever played, and the results of that campaign ultimately became this thing. Have I ever told you about this game? From that experience I learned that players need to make their own maps. Sometimes. I really haven't needed to make my own map since, and I've enjoyed plenty of games without one. But when you pick this guy up, you're going to look through it and you're going to find 0 maps. I had a lot of players ask me to make a map so that they could get a better sense for what the world looked like. And the response to that request was always an adamant no. I understand, like, you get this. This is a good game, by the way. Go get this game. But look, hey, look. There's a map. Oh, looky here. Look at this one. This map is kind of dumb. I don't like that map. This map, I have played a ton of games with this map. This map has changed a lot over the years, but the problem with all of these maps, here's another one right here. The problem with all of these things is that the maps don't represent any kind of choices that the player can make. Here's a picture that I pilfered from the Backstabber website. That's BACKSTABBR.com. This map is beautiful. It is a work of art. It is the game of diplomacy. The design of this map is what creates the matrix of choices available to the players, and those choices represent a beautiful expression of the human condition. The trouble here with Rokugan is that this big world map very rarely represents any choices made available to the players the way the diplomacy map does. Unless you're playing the strategic L5R card game, which isn't this one. Now, there are games wherein the map does represent a choice network, of course, when the grid or the hex map is part of the mechanics. Sure, go for it. That's absolutely necessary. The little dungeon maps I don't object to in the games where they are included. But it is the case that the only times that the world map matters is when you are dealing with world-level issues, and that is very rare in the case of a tabletop RPG, where you've got individual characters who are individually swinging swords and hacking at individual monsters. When we planted the seeds for this game, the map that we had was a bunch of our choices together, and we loved it as a result. But when you play Star Thugs, the map that we gave you is not any of your choices, but things that we just did. And it's not going to change very much about how you choose to play the game. You're typically going to play with one of 2 kinds of people. 1, the kind that doesn't care about the map or any of the rules that don't directly pertain to their character. And 2, the guy who has studied the rulebook intensely, and who will try to use the rules and the map as a bludgeon against the game master. For the former, maps are totally meaningless, and for the latter, maps are a distraction from the purpose of the game. This is why Fiend Wake has travel charts instead of cartography. The travel chart serves the same world-building function the maps do. They give players a real intuitive sense for the sorts of climates and places they're traveling through. But because they represent circumstances, which are fluid, rather than something more concrete like geography, game masters are able to dynamically tune them to present a wider variety of choices to the players that are more appropriate to the circumstance. Lastly, and probably most importantly, the travel chart represents a game dynamic. It gives money a purpose in the game, which is probably something we should talk about later. It gives money purpose because it forces you to buy supplies for your travels. It also makes traveling itself an intrinsic danger. Situations where you are going to want to go from one city to another, perhaps for a big social storytelling diplomatic purpose, will involve that necessary dungeon crawl-like experience as you go through the treacherous roads. It also forces players to press their luck. As they encounter roadside hazards, they're going to have to balance the availability of supplies and the amount of time they have versus the urge to rest and heal up, and all those other things that go with typical RPG hack-and-slash fun. This was our vision for the travel chart in Fiend Wake. And the beautiful thing about it in all RPGs, really, is that you don't have to do it. You just can.